blanket with my baby's where I'll be.
Under the boardwalk,
Out of the sun,
under the boardwalk,
we'll be having some fun.
under the boardwalk,
People walking above,
under the boardwalk,
we'll be making love.
under the boardwalk.
Boardwalk. From the park you hear the happy sound of a carousel. You can almost taste the hot dogs and french fries they sell. Under the boardwalk, down by the sea, yeah. On a blanket with my baby.
Under the boardwalk,
Out of the sun,
under the boardwalk,
Is that on?
we'll be having some fun.
under the boardwalk,
Yeah. Do I need to test this a little, or is
under the boardwalk,
We'll be making love.
under the boardwalk, boardwalk.
it Jack?
Down by the sea, yeah. On a blanket with my baby, where I'll be.
Under the boardwalk.
Out of the sun.
Good evening, everyone. Let's try that again. Good evening, everyone. My name is David McGowan. I'm the Chief Executive here at WJCT, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you here this evening, and also to welcome all of our viewers on Facebook Live. Very happy to be streaming this tonight. StoryCorps is such a great idea, isn't it? And some ideas are so good that they're meant to travel. And we have had the great honor of having StoryCorps here in Jacksonville. How many people were able to make it to that great Airstream trailer down at Memorial Park? Lots. That's great. That's great. What a great setting. So it's going to be a great StoryCorps evening. And the other thing that I want to tell you about is that tonight marks the kind of sneak preview of an initiative that I'm really happy to announce at WJCT, and that is our podcasting initiative. We have our producer, Lindsay Kilbride, here tonight, and she is going to tell you a little bit about it and let you hear a little more about it. And she is probably a little bit too modest to ask you to do what I'm going to ask you to do, which is that before you leave tonight, please take out your phone, find that podcast, and subscribe to it. We could really use that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jacqueline Van Meter of the StoryCorps Mobile Tour. Take it away, Jacqueline.
Thank you, David. Hello, Jacksonville. How's everybody doing this evening? Thank you all so much for being here. What an incredible turnout, really. I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience. I'm delighted at that. But for those of you whom I've not yet had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Jacqueline Van Meter, and I'm the site manager for the StoryCorps Mobile Tour. What that means in practical terms is that I travel with that iconic Airstream y'all know pretty much 365 days a year to 10 communities over the course of the year. So it is a very serious relationship. But it is only one of a number of really, really critical relationships that make the StoryCorps Mobile Tour possible and that brought the StoryCorps Mobile Tour to you this past month here in Jacksonville. So just off the top, I would like to recognize and extend my most sincere gratitude to Memorial Park Association for giving our Airstream trailer the most beautiful location I could possibly imagine. What an exclamation point to an incredible tour this year, being in Memorial Park. I'd also like to thank Beaches Habitat for Humanity, which gave our team a beautiful home in Atlantic Beach over the last 5 weeks. Super grateful for that. And of course, who could forget the incredible, just like army of people at WJCT that made this possible. Big thanks specifically to Cersei Lenoble for working overtime to make our time here so special. It's been an amazing partnership. And look at this venue. Thank you, WJCT. And so tonight, of course, I'm delighted to have you all here. We have some very exciting things to share with you. I might reveal a gem or two that we may have recorded during our time in Jacksonville. And you'll hear some really interesting and innovative new content from WJCT tonight as well. But to begin, I thought I would start with a little bit of context about how this whole project got started, why it is that we do what we do, and how we do it. And so, to begin, back in 2003, so 15 years ago, we're actually celebrating our 15th anniversary this year, our founder, a guy named Dave Isay, had an idea. He's a radio documentarian by trade and training, kind of in the blood too, been doing it since he was a young man. He had this idea. After having the experience of doing documentary work and interviewing folks and actually asking folks to take microphones and go out and interview their community members, he thought, there's something empowering that he could see in the act of asking people to simply tell the stories of their lives and be given the opportunity to answer questions, right? To be honored with the idea that everyone has a story to tell and that that story matters. And so seeing the way in which the experience of being interviewed could be affirming for people, he decided, how could you make this experience available to more people and invite everyday Americans to take the opportunity to do just that, to honor people in their lives by simply asking them to interview one another? And so, in 2003, he set about to create the first ever StoryCorps recording booth, which you see behind me. It's a little recording station that he set up in Grand Central Station, and the proposition was that people would take time out of their busy lives in one of the busiest places on the planet to come in, sit down, and record an uninterrupted 40-minute conversation interviewing someone that they cared about. He had no idea if it would work. But the premise was that people could come in, have that conversation in the company and with the guidance of a trained facilitator who would be there to sort of man the tech so that people could really focus on one another. And then at the end of their conversation, if the participants chose, they could archive that conversation in our collection at the Library of Congress. And so they cut the ribbon, opened the doors, and held their breath. And people started to come in, and they started to record. And something really incredible happened. People started to have dialogues and discover things about one another, people they'd known their whole lives that they'd maybe never known, or taken the time to say things that they hadn't ever taken the time to say before. And so, confident that this proposition might work, they brought the booth above ground. This is our recording booth in Lower Manhattan. And I'd like to play for you now a conversation that took place here at this very booth in 2008, a conversation with Kay Wang, who reluctantly agreed to let her son, Cheng, and her granddaughter, Chen, interview her.
I wasn't very nice. If I make a mistake, my mother, she made me apologize. In our custom, when you apologize to your mother, you have to bring a cup of tea and say, I'm sorry. But I purposely dropped that hot cup of tea on my mother's lap. And I wasn't a good student. I always lied to get out of school, because a lot of boyfriends after me. That time I was still young. I was not bad looking then. So what else? Hurry, hurry. I want to go home.
How'd you meet Grandpa?
I was a training nurse in a hospital. He was there for hemorrhoids operation. So when your grandpa see me, your grandpa keep on asking me to get married. And I said, I don't like you. You have bald headed. I didn't like him because he's ugly. But one thing about your grandpa, he's very smart. That's it. No more questions.
Yeah.
Just a couple more questions.
Short one.
Short ones.
Short ones. Tell me about working at Bloomingdale's. What did you do?
You know what I do. I'm not going to tell
No,
you.
you have to talk about it.
I am a detective. I got a very famous designer. I better not mention her name. She stole a dress, $3,000 some dollar. So I walked out the store. I said, would you like to pay me that dress? She said, do you know who I am? I said, yeah, you're a thief. So that's my life.
Do you have any regrets?
No, what should I regret? No, I think I'm old enough to do whatever I would like. And that's it.
Is that the format of StoryCorps, right? In addition to inviting people to take the time to honor one another with these conversations, it also produces a recording that captures not only the stories of people's lives, but the spirit of the storyteller and the heart of the relationships between those storytellers. And so we broadcast and animate these so that these intimate and unique exchanges can be experienced by more people, and we might be able to have an intimate look into the dialogues that take place that really reveal who people are and what they care about. And so I would like to ask you all, as StoryCorps fans and WJCT listeners, what about that story stood out to you? What strikes you about the dialogue between Kay and Cheng and Chen? Would anybody like to share some thoughts? Honesty? Could you say more?
Plus, it was nurturing and it was informational for the grands, for them to hear information from their grandmother for the first time. So that's a kind of honesty that sometimes is not shared in a family.
It's so true. And I think one of the things that's interesting about StoryCorps is that people do bring in their candor, right? And they step away from sarcasm and distractions and humor sometimes to really dialogue, honestly. And sometimes it's hilarious, and other times it can be very poignant, and oftentimes it's a mixture of both. I'm curious, many of you I know participated, and I wonder, did you come into contact as you asked people in your lives who you thought about recording with? Did anybody, like Kay, express reluctance in wanting to record? Or was everybody ready to sign up at a moment's notice? We love you, Jacksonville. Thank you. Well, it's interesting. Oftentimes people will hear the stories and think, I don't know that I have a story to tell. They all seem so extraordinary. And genuinely, a core to the mission and the view of StoryCorps is that everyone has wisdom from their life. Everyone has experience to share. That there's something that can be gleaned from everyone's experience, and whether that's someone encountering the story in the Library of Congress and understanding the way another person walks through the world, or if it's simply family members having this document of someone that they care about in their life who won't be there forever. There's so much value in recording. Similarly, the conversation itself can be the story, and I think that you'll hear that play out in a lot of the listenings that we'll have this evening. And so back to the story of StoryCorps, it seemed we had a success. Kay and her family came in 2008. And so as we saw the interest and archived more and more stories from our New York community, we decided it was time to make this oral history a democratic oral history and to try to bring this experience of recording to people all across the United States. And so in 2005, the StoryCorps Mobile Tour was born. The mission of the mobile tour is to bring the recording space to your community, and so it sets out to visit 10 communities over the course of a year, recording for about 4 to 5 weeks at a time. And so the next story I would like to share with you was recorded right in our very own mobile booth in 2015 in Jackson, Mississippi. This is a conversation between 9-year-old Aiden Sykes, who had some important questions to ask his dad.
Do you remember what was going through your head when you first saw me?
I remember when the doctor pulled you out, the first thing I thought was that he was being too rough with you. And he actually held you like a little Sprite bottle, and he was like, "Here's your baby." That was the most proud moment of my life. Don't tell your brothers, because it's 3 of y'all. But it was like looking at a blank canvas and just imagining what you want the painting to look like at the end, but also knowing you can't control the paint strokes. You know, the fear was just, I got to bring up a black boy in Mississippi, which is a tough place to bring up kids, period. But there are statistics that say black boys born after the year 2002 have a 1 in 3 chance of going to prison. And all 3 of my sons were born after the year 2002.
So, Dad, why do you take me to protest so much?
I think I take you for a bunch of reasons. One is that I want you to see what it looks like when people come together, but also that you understand that it's not just about people that are familiar to you, but it's about everybody. Did you know the work that Martin Luther King was doing was for everybody and it wasn't just for black people?
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah, so that's how you got to think. If you decide that you want to be a cab driver, then you got to be the most impactful cab driver that you can possibly be.
Are you proud of me?
Of course. You my man. I just love everything about you, period.
The thing I love about you never give up on me. That's one of the things I will always remember about my dad.
You said it like I'm on the way out of here, or like I'm already gone.
So, Dad, what are your dreams for me?
My dream is for you to live out your dreams. It's an old proverb that talks about when children are born, children come out with their fists closed because that's where they keep all their gifts. And as you grow, your hands learn to unfold because you're learning to release your gifts to the world. And so for the rest of your life, I want to see you live with your hands unfolded.
Albert and Aiden Sykes. And so with the mobile tour, we've been able to document and share and archive stories from all 50 states across the United States. It's been an incredible ride. And as we've created this collection to date, we've documented and archived over 77,000 conversations in recording booths like the mobile booth alone in the last 15 years. So it's been quite an endeavor. And the hope is that by being able to share these intimate exchanges that come from all corners of the country, that somewhere at the core of them, there is something fundamental and human that will resonate in all of us. And despite our differences in region, affiliation, backgrounds, beliefs, or dare I even say politics, that there is something in this story that will move us and that will connect us to the storytellers. And so I'd like to ask, does anyone have anything that they'd like to share that resonated with them about the story that they just heard? I imagine there might be a parent or two in the audience. Did anyone want to share some thoughts about Albert and Aiden's conversation?
Because there was a father talking about his sons born after 2002. And I'm from Chicago, Illinois, South Side, and so is my new friend, Vernon. And we have a lot of concerns. So he made me feel very hopeful. And that's one of my favorite stories on StoryCorps.
Mine too. Thank you.
Where I've worked, we've had a lot of influence on literacy skills and how that relates to imprisonment. And that is such an important piece in how many people can be saved from the difficulty of going to jail. There are many, many opportunities to improve reading skills, and that actually has such a big impact on academic performance, being able to perform in other aspects of life. I work for Nemours Children's Clinic, and Nemours brightstart.org is a wonderful resource. We use that for a lot of families in the Jacksonville area.
Thank you for sharing. Did anyone else have any thoughts that they wanted to share about the story or any reactions that they had? That's definitely one of my favorites too. And so there's one last story. Oh, I'm sorry. We have one more person.
Well,
yes.
I wasn't sure whether I was going to say this, but I thought it was really great just to see how a parent just talks about the dreams that they have for their children, and how the son was so insightful in even asking that question. And I think that's a lesson for so many parents that we share what we dream and the fact that we do, and that we have hope for our children. And that goes across, race, economics, and every other indicator that's out there. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you. And so I've got one more story that I wanted to share in the spirit of thinking about this archive that we're creating, and with the mission that we want to make it as representative as possible of all the different ways that people have lived their lives in the United States over recent decades. And so this last one is from a Southern girl from Georgia, like myself. Glenda Elliott is from Mayfield, Georgia, and she came into the booth to record in 2015 to talk about a great love in her life.
Laurie knew how to tease me without my being offended. And there was something about the way she would smile that, I can still see very vividly. She was the first person I really, truly loved. But I grew up in the 40s in a small rural community. There was certainly no role models of what it means to love someone of the same sex. So I didn't know how to understand that. My high school sweetheart, he proposed to me, and I thought at that time that's what a woman did. She got married. And it didn't take me very long to realize that I'd made a mistake. So he and I decided to get a divorce. During all of this time, Laurie and I had stayed in touch. I knew that I loved her deeply. She said, well, I have very strong feelings for you too, but most of all, I want to have children. She met a man who had asked her to marry him. Then she got pregnant, and she said, if it's a little girl, I'm going to name her after you. Well, it turned out it was a little boy, and I was relieved. It really would have been excruciatingly painful if she had had a little girl named after me. Somewhere along the way, she said, if I outlived my husband and you don't have a partner, perhaps we can grow old together. And somehow that made it all right. But then Laurie got cancer, and she didn't live very long. And I did not get to see her again. It didn't hit me so much until I turned 60, and I began to really think about old age. And this was the time that Laurie and I were going to have. And it didn't happen. There are certain kinds of love that never die. But I don't regret at all our time together. It is where I learned that I could love, and I could be loved in that complete sense of the word.
Glenda Elliott. A really fundamental part of StoryCorps' mission is to ensure that oral history is accessible to all and that the stories that we document are told by the storytellers, not just for the storytellers. Part of the way that StoryCorps goes about the work of ensuring that the archive is representative of the myriad of ways in which people live their lives all across this United States is through concerted and focused outreach to the communities that we visit and really important partnerships with the community organizations that work and serve there. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to thank and recognize the incredible community partners that we had the opportunity to work with while we were here in Jacksonville, who helped to ensure that incredible stories from every corner of this community came into that booth and were documented by the participants in their own voices and on their own terms. These organizations are doing incredible work, and we always prioritize trying to make the experience of collaborating with StoryCorps and recording as valuable for those partners as we can. And so I'd like to ask, I believe that we have a community partner or two in the room tonight, with this work being so important to how we're able to be successful and impactful in the communities that we visit. I'd really like to hand it over to a partner or two who'd like to share a little bit about what they are doing in this community and why it was valuable for them or why they were interested in collaborating with StoryCorps to record stories from the community. Perhaps. Aline? Thank you. If you could just tell everyone who you're with and what the work is.
Hi, my name's Aline Marsh. I teach English for speakers of other languages at FSCJ downtown campus. And actually I'm here with one of my students, Fazal from Afghanistan, and a friend, Joel. And we have a very large immigrant population in Jacksonville. They come often as refugees. From all over the world. It's very diverse. And I just thought that this would be a great way to give people that normally don't have a chance to tell their story a way to do that. Sometimes our immigrant students especially don't have family here. They're often alone, and this just seemed like the perfect vehicle for them to think about what they wanted to share and have that opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Aline.
Maybe Fazal. Fazal, did you want to say anything?
Thank you very much. It was a very nice and a great opportunity for me to participate in one of the conversations. In fact, this was very interesting for me because I was alone here and I wanted to share my thoughts, my feelings. So this was a great opportunity for me to share my thoughts, my feelings, and how I think. It was very amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Fazal. Fazal is one of a lot of participants that we had the privilege of working with over the last few weeks. And so I would like to open it up to a few more participants, if y'all wouldn't mind. You know, we interact with the people in our lives every day. We have every opportunity to ask questions and to talk. And so I wonder, for those of you who have participated, what it is about stepping into that booth or sitting down to record a StoryCorps conversation that feels different. How does it take you out of your day-to-day life and inspire a different kind of conversation? Would any participant like to reflect or share a little bit about what their experience was like in the booth?
I think what I was going to say is that I work backwards. So knowing that it was going to be archived so that other people in other areas would get to hear my story, and not just now, but whenever, was really cool. And I actually was the person that was asked, my bestie, and I did the recording, and originally, we started out talking about the things that are uniquely her, but then we talked about our relationship, and knowing that other people could be inspired by people who support one another, you know, just living somewhere randomly on the other side of the country, perhaps, when they listen to it, was really exciting to me.
Thank you.
The bus, that's what I'm going to call it. It's so cool. It was like comfortable and real easy to sit in, and kind of, initially you're seeing the equipment over there, but after a while you just begin to talk one to another, and that was really cool.
Thank you so much for sharing. By design, we create kind of an intimate space. Yeah, we have a few more comments up at the front. Yeah, sure. It's just the woman behind you real quick.
What?
Hi.
My name is Tia Wilson, and I am 16. So I did StoryCorps with my mother, and being in that trailer and having her tell her story about what was it like in her teens, it was really informative and empowering to me, because she went through some obstacles, but she got through them. And I was very proud of her, and I was proud of myself as well, because she first did have a son, my older brother, but when she had me, she told me how mother and daughter relationships are very special, and that it is important for a mother and daughter to bond with each other and have a good relationship, and how she will always be there for me no matter what. So I'm really happy that I got to listen to her story and compare it to the struggles that I'm going through, and that it was really empowering.
I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you. Melissa, we have a couple more folks up front that wanted to share.
Hi, I'm Avis. I did it with my daughter. She interviewed me, and she was just walking around Memorial Park, and she saw the your what do you call it?
Trailer.
Your trailer. And it's so cute. And I have always wanted to do this because my mother passed away last year, and I really had wanted to do it with her when I first heard about StoryCorps, because it's a wonderful thing to be able to preserve a conversation with a loved one, especially when that loved one isn't here with you anymore. And so it was very special for me to be able to do this with my daughter. So she said she was going to ask me all these questions about her mother, my mother. And we started out like that. But by the end of the conversation, you know, I'm just crying. And we're just going really deep into our relationship. She told me how much that I meant to her, and I told her how much she meant to me. And you get really deep conversations that you don't even think you're going to have, because you're just going into a trailer and and you use a whole box of tissues. But it's a wonderful thing, and it's something that you can leave for your daughter, and then one day when she has a family, grandchildren, and you know, just kind of a legacy. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. And it's true, as I said earlier, so often the conversation itself is the story, because those microphones and that space, it just gives you permission. It invites you to take the time to ask the questions that you wouldn't ask in day-to-day life, and to explore some of these topics more deeply. It's been such an incredible experience being in Jacksonville and discovering this community through the intimate lives and exchanges of the people who've lived here. And so, of course, I'd like to share with you a little bit about what we've documented. This is just a little bit of a glimpse into the 130 or so conversations that we've recorded here in Memorial Park just over the last few weeks.
I think I'll ask you a question.
Okay. Ready?
I am Besma Alawi. I am 32 years old.
My name is Sissy Shepherd. My age is 58.
Hello guys, my name's Donna. I'm 10 years old.
My name is Harry Reagan, father. I'm 80 years old.
Mom, from your perspective, what made you think Dad was the one?
This is going to sound crass, but the fact was he was not a farmer. And he was sexy.
My name's Andrea Reyes. I am 34 years old.
AJ Anderson. I'm 17 years old.
What's your favorite memory of me?
Ooh, it's hard to pick because there's so many that I like.
Today's date is December the 3rd.
It's December 1st today.
It's November the 30th. This is 2018.
What would be the biggest thing you would want me to change?
Probably your cooking.
We're in Jacksonville, Florida.
We are in Jacksonville, Florida.
In Memorial Park.
It was fun and exciting to explain the military to you and how it worked.
I am in Jacksonville, Florida with my dearest friend, Aline Marsh.
I'm here with my father and my mother.
Quinn is my grandson.
My relationship to my interview partner is she's my ex-wife.
Today I'm with Andrea, my attorney and friend.
Getting old is no picnic. What you have to deal with
Getting
now.
old?
Yeah, yeah.
It's for the birds.
And what would you say to young people?
What would I say to young people? Treasure every day you have and be glad you can enjoy it. Appreciate it.
I lived a pretty single, transient lifestyle until 2007 when my partner was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was new in the relationship and I had to make a giant decision. Did I want to stay and be the rock for this person or did I want to bail?
And so
I stayed, and that's what carried me to Jacksonville and through the journey of 6 to 7 years.
I met you 5 years ago. We became really good friends, and you became my attorney. How did it feel for you to help me through my immigration journey?
Oh my God, it was terrifying. I was terrified. I was terrified that I would fail, that I would disappoint you, your family. I felt like your whole world was on my shoulders, especially because, you know, you are my friend. Do you remember when we got the good news?
Yes, I remember when the judge was making his decision and you held my hand under the table and I just started crying. I just knew that I couldn't have asked for a better person to be there with me that day.
It was the worst feeling ever. And when she asked me if I was sure I wanted to do it, like I hesitated, and I was hoping you would hesitate too, but it was just a closed door. And then when the door opened, we were sitting there across from each other, telling this judge that we didn't want to be married anymore. Leaving there, I didn't know if I wanted to hug you or like dap you up, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where do we go from here?
Right.
Like, and I knew it wasn't the end, didn't want it to be, but didn't communicate that with you.
And it wasn't like we couldn't communicate, we just didn't. We just literally did not communicate.
I don't want to divorce you again. I don't want to ever have to be without you, and I want you to know that I'm really going to fight to love you the way you deserve to be loved. The way I should have loved you before when you loved me with all your heart and I only gave you like a small percentage of it because I was afraid.
Honestly, it's like, I wish we had had this conversation a long time ago.
Okay, it's funny. I don't know if I shared that with you before.
Never.
So I was in elementary, 6th grade, graduating to middle school.
Isn't 6th grade middle school?
In Iraq, 6th grade is elementary.
What?
So I was graduating and going to middle school, and the last day before summer break, my dad decided like, hey, let me give you a haircut. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. And he's like, no, I will make you look really good.
Snip, snip, snip.
And I don't think he know how to cut hair, but I let him. And he did chaos. I didn't look good. And I'm like, And I went back and forth to the mirror, trying to fix the way I look. And I went to him and I said, listen, I'm going to wear the hijab. And he was like, no, we don't wear the hijab because you have a bad hair day. You wear the hijab because you really want to do it. This is a really big decision. I know we talked about that like 2 years ago. You said, I really want to wear the hijab. And I told you, no, not yet. You're really young. And this year, I think we talked about that again, and you brought up, I really want to wear it, but what if my classmate will make fun of me, right?
Uh-huh.
And what did I tell you?
Just answer the questions?
Yeah, educate people. The benefit of wearing hijab, I am educating people all the time about where I came from, what is my religion, and why I'm wearing it. So you will wear it when you are ready. You will figure out why and when.
My son was such a happy person. He was so full of love. Keegan was a person that he just did not see evil. No matter what he was going through, he could find a way to make you laugh or smile. The night that Keegan passed, my daughter came to the door and told me to get my clothes on. I already had everything on. She said, Mom, something's happened terrible to Keegan. And when we got to his mother-in-law's, all I could see was my son laying on the ground. He was sitting in his car on date night with his wife, and his neighbor came across the street and approached him, started a confrontation over a piece of paper that had blew in his yard. Keegan wouldn't get out of the car, and he lured him out of the car. Finally, Keegan opened up the car door, and he shot him 3 times, killed him in front of Ellie. They never arrested his neighbor. He did not spend one night in jail. Keegan was 22 years old. He just had so much life left in him. Where is your justice? I mean, you can murder someone because they say stand your ground, and they can come over and start a confrontation and shoot their way out. What helps me stay strong is knowing that there is another justice besides here on earth. God has his justice.
These last couple weeks have been kind of tough on the two of us. What do you do in those moments where you just want to like tear your hair out? Just be like, Mom.
I usually go to my room.
You just kind of get a quiet moment to yourself.
Yeah, pretty much.
What advice would you give me in that moment?
Just to leave me alone, let me be.
Yeah, it's hard, you know. I feel so anxious. I just don't know which way it's going to go. And the biggest thing I worry about is that I might do something that would drive you away. Now, I don't know what'll happen to this story. Maybe it'll just stay between you and me. But if you knew there was another teenager out there and that mom and that kid were having a really tough time connecting, what advice would you give them?
Just to like stay by each other, and just like the more that you stick together and stand by each other, and the faster it'll get better, and the more that you support each other, the closer it'll bring you two together in the end.
Has it been hard for you to stick by me these last couple weeks?
Sometimes, yeah.
What do you tell yourself to kind of get you through that moment where you just want to like run away from your mom?
I usually just listen to music that helps calm me down. Right?
You need the music. It's time to break out the music.
Sometimes, yeah, I play with the dogs.
I loved the Pretenders a lot growing up. And the Pretenders have this great song called I'll Stand By You. In it, she says, take me deep into your darkest hour. Nothing you confess can make me love you less. I will stand by you. I think that is the purest definition of unconditional love. And as hard as it is to commit to that, that's really the only path for getting us through some of our really tough times. I may not agree with all the decisions that you make, and I may not be proud of myself in those moments, but I kind of hope that with each struggle, we come out stronger.
How much do you love me again?
I love you to the moon and back.
Oh, thank you.
and I feel the same way.
I got a lot of making up to do for not doing what I should have done when I was younger.
What changed?
My heart.
We'll definitely like come out of this stronger and closer than we were before.
You're my dearest friend in the world.
Me too.
And thank you.
Jacksonville, Florida. None of this is possible without the support and collaboration of the participants who are at the heart and soul of what we do. And so I would just like to take this moment, if you are able and you are a participant in the room who recorded with us in the booth or are going to record with us in the next week, would you please stand so we can recognize you? These are the folks representing Jacksonville in 2018 in the Library of Congress. I would also like to invite you all at the conclusion of our program to come up to the stage. We're actually going to hopefully take a group picture of all of our participants together. But in the meantime, there's a couple other folks I'd like to invite up to the stage right now. This work can't be done without a lot of dedication and commitment to life on the road, and we've gotten that commitment from some extraordinary women on our team. So I'd like to introduce you all to the women who do this work, who sit in that booth and record these stories. Please welcome to the stage Melissa Velasquez and Eleanor Vasili. So Melissa over here joined the mobile tour in April of 2018 along with myself. We've been on the road together since April. Eleanor has just joined us. Jacksonville is her first stop, and she will be on the road until October of 2019. We get so many wild questions in the booth as people are coming and going, and so little time to actually answer those questions because we are recording 5 days a week, 7 interviews a day, 140 conversations over the course of the month. And it's a lot of action in a little bit of time. And so we wanted to, first of all, introduce you to these incredible folks and also give you the opportunity if you have any questions about what it is like to work at StoryCorps, what it's like to be in that booth, the experience of living on the road, or our experience being in Jacksonville over the past few weeks. Does anyone have any questions for the team? Tracy.com. Oh, there's a microphone coming up on you.
Oh, I don't need that.
Me neither.
What was your favorite part about Jacksonville?
Oh, woo, good question. My favorite part about, Jacksonville is an incredible place, and also we're staying in Atlantic Beach, and I feel like those are sort of two worlds. People talk about how everyone has their little domain on one side of the river or the other. We've had a great time here. Atlantic Beach, where we're staying, has been a lot of fun. I personally am kind of an outdoor nut, and so I was so excited to come to Florida and experience the flora and fauna that y'all have here. I'm pretty sure there are alligators living across the street from our house, which is kind of nuts. Hanna Park is right next door to where we're staying, and it's just spectacular. I've cruised up and down the coast and really enjoyed just experiencing the natural beauty of Florida. It's pretty unparalleled in the U.S. Did you guys have some faves?
I think I want this on. Yeah.
Get in there.
I'd like to add the pie. We had some amazing pie out here.
Pie Heaven, shout out, Mayport Road.
That's a shout out.
Yeah,
they deserve
so
that
good.
shout out.
We've eaten
I
a lot of
think
pie.
we've literally gone there like 5 times to have pie.
That's true.
But I think beside the outdoors, I think it always is the people that I connect with that kind of just make it so much more special. And considering the fact that we're away from home during the holidays, there were some really special people, participants that made my stay so much more better, so much more memorable, that they went out of their way, to make me feel at home, and it was really nice. So I really appreciate that.
And not to sound cheesy, but in all honesty, I think my favorite place was actually the booth, because this was my first stop, and it was really my first moments experiencing everything. To sit there with some of you in that intimate space really was just absolutely incredible for me, so I'm honored and grateful. Thank you.
What else can we tell you?
Jacqueline, back here.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Melissa and Eleanor and Jackie. I'm Carlos here from the WJCT staff, and I've been here in almost 20 years, and my conversation was with a friend who was also a professional in media. But I wanted to say that even though we know all about the wires, the microphones, and everything, the second we walked in, we felt immediately comfortable and immediately safe. And after a while, all those microphones and wires just kind of disappeared. The staff was incredibly professional. And when I did it with an ex-girlfriend. And I thought, holy smokes, what am I bringing together here? You know, is it going to be as sweet as Donald and Hillary or as mellow as Gasoline and Fire? But it turned out to be really nice. And it was because of the way you treated us. It was like being on a porch swing, just conversing. And at other times, it was like being in a confessional with that kind of peace. And so I really wanted to just acknowledge that, and the way you made it really very easy, very safe, and very, very memorable. It was my birthday that day, and so thank you.
Carlos, thank you. Porch Swing Confessional, that was really lovely. Thank you so much.
Hi, I love StoryCorps, and it makes me cry every time I hear it on Friday mornings, but I'm just curious how long each story takes. So we hear about 4 or 5 minutes. How long does each story take for you all to record?
Each recording is typically 40 minutes. You're welcome.
Can you give us a little more detail? It's 40 minutes, but what do you do during that 40 minutes, and how, I'm assuming another team edits it? How's that process?
Well, not always. Sometimes they're kept whole as 40 minutes, but really it's up to you how you want to use that time. It's just a conversation between the two of you, and it's really your space to use it however you want. They are edited down when they're used for broadcast to 2 to 3 minutes, but that's not the case all the time.
And really, the goal, as Carlos said, is to let participants know that they're leading the experience. So they'll arrive, we give them kind of a brief orientation, ask what their expectations are, what their goals are, what they're hoping to get out of the conversation, make sure that everyone feels comfortable. They have that 40 minutes, they're not obligated to use all of it, but I think what we have found time and time again is most folks say, oh, how am I gonna fill 40 minutes? I don't know that I'm prepared, and it flies by. People all follow their curiosity and oftentimes uncover things that they didn't know about their partner or didn't expect to talk about, as we heard here tonight. And then at the end of that 40 minutes, that's when we discuss whether or not the participants feel comfortable archiving the recording. That's completely optional. But if they do choose to archive, a copy is preserved at the Library of Congress for posterity, where people, members of the public, can access it on site. We're actually in the process of building a digital version of our archive, which is kind of a crazy, wild, and wonderful, if terrifying, undertaking. Shout out to our recording and archiving department for their work. So coming soon on the StoryCorps website, you'll actually be able to click on the archive option and explore these stories yourself in their full, unedited 40-minute format, which is pretty amazing. And then, of course, there are some that are selected for broadcast. Of course, we're recording thousands of conversations each year, and we've got a national broadcast through NPR that airs coast to coast, but those are only 52 per year. It's incredible to work with local affiliates like WJCT and others so that we can broadcast local stories more frequently locally. You know, in terms of what ends up on the air, we can tell you, being in the booth, that all of the stories are incredible, and unexpected things happen every day, and we learn every day in that booth. Oftentimes what ends up being selected for broadcast might be relevant in some way to the national conversation if there's a topic or an issue on people's minds. And then additionally, we really try to focus on ensuring that if there are stories that are not told enough, who are we not hearing from in mainstream media? Who do we need to be hearing more from? Again, in their own voices and on their own terms. So it's a very complex formula for determining what ultimately makes it on the air. But that's why we're so excited about the online archive, because we're going to be able to provide access to an infinite number more stories very soon. She asked how the scheduling works. People definitely have to sign up for a time slot. We have limited appointments, unfortunately, and when we come to a community like Jacksonville, which is obviously so engaged and so big, we have appointments that become available, about half of them a few weeks before we arrive in the community, that become available online, and WJCT or our local partner will sort of promote those opportunities for people to schedule a 1-hour time slot. And then we open up the sort of the second half of the month a day or so after we arrive in town. And they tend to fly pretty quickly. So that's part of the reason that we're really focused on community outreach. And it's so important to connect with stations so that we can get the word out as far as possible to make sure that we're bringing in lots of folks.
Got a couple back here.
Yes.
Thank you for making this most memorable holiday season for me and my mom. She shared a story about her 17-year-old brother going off and joining the Navy for World War II. He ended up in Adak, Alaska, and that was my first tour as a boot ensign when I joined in 1983, so it really came circle. You ladies rock. I had the most wonderful...
Thank you.
I had the most wonderful time this holiday season again doing StoryCorps. I don't know if you know that Baptist Age Well uses StoryCorps as part of their memory enrichment program. And it's listed for me to do exercises and activities with my mom, so I really appreciate that. The last thing is that I've changed my Amazon Smile charity to StoryCorps. So thank you.
We are humbled. Thank you so much. I think we have time for a question or two more, if there are any others.
Yeah, I have another one back here.
Yeah.
I enjoy StoryCorps also, and I only knew about it through the on-air WJCT, and I love the stories, but I also like the animation. I wanted to know how does that, how do they do that? Because that's really, I thought that was really a good, I guess, air to it, whereas the animation along with the story, and it makes it more interesting. So I've always enjoyed
that. We have so many broadcasts that go out, and I think in this sort of digital age in which we have found ourselves, to try to reach a broader audience still, StoryCorps concluded that animating these stories, which are often so descriptive and visual anyway, would be a really great way to sort of get more eyes in addition to ears. And so we've collaborated with a couple of different agencies externally, and then we have had at various times staff internally that works on those animations, and really, looks for stories that are very visual, or just that we found have been particularly resonant with audiences around the country. And I want to take this opportunity to say that when people serve as a staff member on the mobile tour, they have that position for 1 year. And we're always looking for ways to keep the incredible institutional knowledge and brilliance of folks who've recorded so many people on the mobile tour at the organization. And Eleanor is new, and she's just taken over for a woman who is now in the animation department, Savannah Winchester. So we have a former mobile facilitator who is now doing animation production at StoryCorps. So we're excited to see what mobile stories end up coming to PBS and YouTube near you. Keep an eye out.
Jacqueline.
First of all, I wanted to point out that I really did enjoy StoryCorps, and that I would definitely do it with another family relative, or maybe in the future when I have children of my own. And my question is, while listening and recording to other people's stories, did you guys have like teaching moments that inspire the team to be participants themselves?
Yes, absolutely. Sitting in a recording for 40 minutes. I've done up to, how many, Jack, have I done? About.
Ooh, good question.
Yeah,
I think you're maybe between 200 and 250.
Yeah, and about maybe 7 stops already.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of knowledge that goes into in that booth. I feel like I'm in a crash course of human experiences and history. American, but also world, because we're so connected, and it's insane how connected we are. I wish we all could kind of have the opportunity to sit in the booth for maybe a year, because we could learn a lot. But yeah, every day is reflection. I carry this little notebook with me in each one of my recordings, and I write down notes from each recording. So sometimes there's so many, there's about 200 that I've done already, that the lines are blurred and I don't recall which one is which. But then I open up my notebook and I go through certain keywords and I'm like, oh, dang, I remember that recording. And I'm like teleported back to the booth and I could see their faces. It's actually really beautiful. It's a beautiful experience, yeah. So yes, most of my recordings, if not all, weigh very heavy. Sometimes a little bit more than they should, right? but it's always a lesson. It's always a lesson in that booth for me. Yeah, thank you.
It's impossible not to be.
We try to build reflection into the workflow at StoryCorps just because it's so much to process, as you can imagine. I mean, one conversation is so dense and so full of nuance and emotion, and it is a ride. And we're in the booth 5 days a week, doing 7 of those in a day. And so it is a lot to take in and a lot to process. We always talk on the tour about how you can try to journal. I really love editing together the montage because it just gives me an opportunity to sort of sit with the voices and pull out some of these gems. But I think it's something that I think we all feel like after we step off of the tour, we need a couple months to just really sit and synthesize everything that we've heard, because I can't imagine any other job where you just experience so much wisdom and emotion and the infinite variations of love than being in that room.
Similarly to Melissa, I also take notes during the recordings, and I take them on Post-its, and every day or after every week now that there's been a few weeks under my belt, keep on revisiting them and looking at them, and it just blows my mind looking at the words, and I'm brought back to every recording every single time, and I know that I will be keeping those notes with me for the rest of my life, and I look forward to looking at them down the line in the future as well and collecting just bags upon bags of them.
I'm telling her to buy a notebook.
She got the sticky note habit for me. It's a bad habit. All right, y'all, thank you so much. We good? Thank you so much for your thoughtful questions and your attention. There are just a couple more things that I wanted to mention. This is obviously an amazing journey for us, but you all are equally like passengers on this ride. And we are so grateful that you are sharing in what we've done and listening to the stories, but we don't want to lose track of you either. And so we invite you, if you've interacted with StoryCorps tonight in some way, if you've recorded, if you're going to record, maybe using the mobile app, we'd really love for you to share your experiences in whatever venue you like. This is the hashtag that helps us to track that and to really keep an eye on and stay connected to all of the incredible participants that we've met on this tour. So wanted to shout out hashtag StoryCorps Mobile Tour. And then also, if you did not have an opportunity to record in the booth, or you did and you are inspired to keep going, we do have a mobile application that you can download for free. And now that you've had this experience, or if you're inspired to have that experience, you can sit down and take the time to record with a loved one. The app kind of guides you through the experience in the manner that a facilitator might in the booth. And if you do upload to our collection, it is stored at the Library of Congress along with every other conversation that we record in the mobile booth and through our other channels. So encourage you to keep recording and keep these conversations going. At this point, I'm really, really excited to hand it off to WJCT. They're doing something really interesting, innovative, and exciting with respect to the stories that we have recorded here in Jacksonville, and they're taking it in a very, very cool direction. And so I'd like at this point to invite Ms. Lindsay Kilbride, WJCT producer, to the stage to tell you all a little more and give you a sneak peek.
Hello. So yes, I'm a producer at WJCT. I recently just transitioned into a slightly new role. You may have heard me on the radio and probably not so much lately, and that's because I'm doing some new things. So first I want to invite on stage Patricia and her son, Rod. You guys would come up. All right, so Patricia and Rod are up here because they are actually the two main subjects, I guess, in WJCT's new podcast, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. But first, I really wanted to sit with them and talk to them a little bit about their StoryCorps conversation they had. And, oh, thank God, microphone's perfect. Because the podcast is centered around these really powerful conversations. It's sort of the jumping off point for our new podcast. So just first, what inspired you to have the StoryCorps conversation? Whoever.
I knew she was going to look at me. I was at TEDx Jacksonville, and I didn't know anything about StoryCorps until they showed it at this year's TEDx. And I thought that would be cool, and someone recommended me and my mom, and I thought that would be even better to have a conversation like that. And I feel like StoryCorps kind of stops the world and allows that conversation that needs to be had in a lot of households to happen. So you go in there and you're almost forced to say what you need to say.
What was that experience like for you?
It was awesome.
A little closer.
Oh, it was an awesome experience. It was,
yeah, just a little closer.
Hold it up, mama, like this. See this? Look at me, mama.
I also hate
there
talking
you go.
into a microphone.
It was an awesome
now
experience.
You go. Now go to people right there.
It was an awesome experience. It was enlightening because he said some things that came to me I didn't think was coming. So, yeah, I was ready. I was ready to hear.
It's been a long time for our family to have a conversation like this.
Uh-oh.
Oh, Jesus. And that booth allowed, that atmosphere allowed for that to happen. And she said she was ready. She's been wanting to talk, and it allowed this to come about. Like, we wouldn't walk past each other in the kitchen and have this conversation. So it happened from that.
So from having the StoryCorps conversation, because it is very unique, you're having a very intentional conversation. You're sort of forced to have this. You're looking straight at each other, right across from each other. From that, does that sort of inspire you to continue having conversations like this? Or, I mean, how did it impact your life?
Well, it was like the beginning for us because we do have conversations, but like some of the things that we talked about in the booth was like the beginning for me to like open up some other stuff that I've been wanting to talk to him about, to like lay the foundation for us,
I've been having StoryCorps almost every day since. I just
Yes, he has.
stop people and sit them down. Sit down for a second. We got to talk. Just had it, didn't we, Soraya?
Yeah.
Just had it at the house.
That's my other daughter, yeah.
It brought about the importance of conversation, and I think that's what lacks in the community and the country, is that we don't talk enough about things that we need to talk about. And in my family, it's so cool to have that dynamic to come in and fix things. So
Yeah, and the tears are because when you open up that can of worms, oh my gosh, it's like you just open up that can of worms, and it should have been happening. So, but I'm glad. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Rod and Patricia.
thank you so much, Lindsay.
Thank you. Amazing. You're doing so good. I know. All right. Now I'm going to play a portion of our new podcast. And so it's it's called What It's Like. And it's just that. It's people talking about what it's like to have all these life-changing events and things happening in their lives, just anything that really happens to a person. And it's sort of a spin-off of StoryCorps, right? So we have the main characters, the people from the conversation, and then we go in a totally different direction. And so basically each episode is going to have some really good excerpts from a StoryCorps conversation. And then we kind of find out, why did that conversation have to happen? And so that's sort of what the episode explores. And we try to get that background through follow-up interviews I have with the people. So without further ado, I will play the episode. I chopped off the intro because it basically just explained what StoryCorps is. I hope that you all know that by now. If not, Jacqueline can pull you aside after. So here we go. All right.
More than 77,000 conversations have been recorded in booths like this one. One of the stories from Jacksonville is between 35-year-old Roderick Borchade and his mom, 56-year-old Patricia Harvey.
Yesterday, just yesterday, you gave me a bag of pills.
Yes.
And you told me to take them away from you. You were in tears at the time. And I knew that it was a moment that we wouldn't forget. You were trying to get rid of them. You didn't want them in your house anymore. Where did those pills come from?
Doctors, a therapist. Some were to wake up, some was to go to sleep, some to focus, just to keep me going.
And you didn't want to take them anymore?
No, I don't. Mm-mm. I'm a person who has an addicted personality. And I felt like I didn't need them anymore. I felt zombatized, you know.
It was a moment for me to see you push them towards me. There was a time where that was very hard to do.
Patricia was addicted to crack cocaine for 21 years. It started when she was getting out of an abusive marriage.
A man who beat me for breakfast and supper.
And picked up again when one of her sons died of brain cancer. Roderick was taken from his mom and he lived with his grandma most of his childhood, starting at age 5. Did you have visits with her throughout your childhood?
She would stop by Grandma's house, and Grandma always let her in, always gave her food, anything that she'd need. So we saw her sporadically. She would come see us. She'd bring me food to my back window when Grandma didn't know about it or Grandpa didn't know about it. But it was more damaging to us than anything because we knew it wasn't going to last long.
He would also see his mom outside the house.
I remember being on the school bus and passing by and seeing you outside. You were under the addiction at the time, and I knew it. And I was on a school bus full of kids. And that was a moment that I felt like I had to let you go. By then, I'm headed to high school, and I felt like I couldn't hold on anymore, and I focused even more on my education. Because if I kept the visions and the worries about what was going on, then I don't think I would have been able to focus on school for that moment. I was like, well, that's not you.
Was it hard to let go?
By the time I decided to, it wasn't. I had to make a decision for my own life. You're talking 13 years of life living like that. I was tired, and I just focused more on something. I think you don't hurt as much when you put your energy towards something else, and I did just that. And mine was my education and writing and my life.
But he didn't let go forever.
When did you decide it was okay to let your mom back in, and how did you make that decision?
My grandma was always a forgiving woman, and she taught me forgiveness. And she told me no matter what, she needs your love and to always be there and forgive her. Don't lose yourself in it, which was my grandfather. He was more stern about everything. So it's a mixture of them both.
She had relapsed before, so how did you know this was the time? You believed her.
By then, I didn't care. I didn't care. I just if you say that you're going to do it, I just got to be there every time. Even though, this has happened differently before. You've been bad before. I'm not the type of person that would be like, okay, well, I know you're going to do this again, or I don't trust you. Sometimes they just need you to believe them, because if I would have doubted her and showed any doubt, that probably would have driven her right back to it.
Rod's mom, Patricia, said the reason she stayed addicted so long was the lifestyle.
Wanting to have people around me and, being told that I was beautiful.
And there was the trauma she experienced, abuse and losing a child. She also lost friends on the street. She said a lot of them got AIDS, one was murdered. But when she found herself pregnant at 43 with a baby girl, she checked into rehab.
couple of nights before, I had been on what I call a marathon. I had been smoking all day, all night. I hadn't got any sleep, and I knew that I had a baby inside me, and I couldn't stop myself. And the thought of killing a child or having a child addicted to drugs was eating away at my mind. I was in front of a bar, and I picked the phone up and I called them, and she picked up the phone and she says, just stay right there and I'll be there to get you. And it came and got me. I mean, I had no money. I was broke. I didn't have any medical coverage. I was on the streets. So they made a way for me to come in.
But that baby didn't die. She's now 12, and Patricia has been sober for over a decade. She says the thought of crack makes her nauseous. Do you ever fear you'll relapse?
Always. Always. You are. It's like a nightmare to even think about it. It's so worth being clean.
How do you cope with the guilt you still feel? How do you cope with that?
Oh, man. I don't know. Oh, God, my kids forgive me. God has forgiven me. My kids forgive me. I know there's forgiveness, and that's how I cope with it. I had to forgive myself. It took a long time, and I still got some little things here and there, but for the most part, I got through it. I'm here today.
Patricia's ultimate test of sobriety was when she was caring for her dying father.
So, and I know a lot of people thought that I would relapse, but I didn't. I know that God is with me, that he keeps talking to me, letting me know that I brought you through for a reason. And my children, they are like a foundation where drugs should have made me weak in some other people's eyes. Once a crackhead, always a crackhead. That's what one of my family members said. And I wasn't born with a crack pipe in my mouth. Thank you, Jesus. I'm not going to die with one.
Roderick has coped through writing poetry and performing it, which he does at colleges and other schools all around the country. And that's how he started to talk to his mom about how she affected his childhood. There was never an initial sit-down conversation, just poems about his mom's addiction.
He tells my story because I can't. You can see I'm a mess right now, but I'm loving that he can reach other people through me, that what I went through, somebody else won't have to go through it. Or they'll have the strength and the courage to hear my story and say, I can do it. She did it, you know. Every time he tells my story, no matter how many times I hear it, it still hurt like yesterday. It's like something so unreal, and I always go back, my mind takes me back to the times when I could visualize my kids waiting on me to come home and I never show up. Hard.
Has him telling your story and his story, has that helped you stay clean?
Yeah, it does. It encourages me. My story being told through him helps me to know that I never want to go back down that road again.
But he also recites poems about her recovery.
Let's do pumpkin pie.
Okay.
So I always have to tell a story before it, and then the audience says.
This one's about his sober mom's first stab at making Thanksgiving dinner. She made pumpkin pie.
For some reason, sweet potato pie is in the African American community. We don't do the pumpkin pie. It's a rule, and across the nation, everybody knows this. It's so crazy, but my mom didn't know it. She cooked the pumpkin pie, and she failed at it. It was the worst pie that I've ever had. So please say pumpkin pie.
Pumpkin pie.
The pumpkin pie lie offended. It wasn't prepared at its best. But what are the terms of the mother bird's worms that she hustles back to the nest? You see, my mother did more than dig tunnels. Her burdens were heavy to tote, for she had been wounded by hunters, and they shot her down with their dope.
Roderick and Patricia spend a lot of time together nowadays. They've gone on cross-country trips and even made it to Canada to see Niagara Falls.
They say things get better with time. I watch my watch watching me back. The ticks and the tocks of her heart and my clock were forcing me close to the tracks.
Patricia said being sober means she can actually breathe now.
She's been such a force on my rhyme. Now God may not come when you call,
but when he arrives, it's on time. That's why I say more than just poems. My life has been more than just verse. I think of my mom and perform. I've watched her come back from her worst. And as bad as that pie was prepared, I ate it with little regret. For the chef had been bruised past repair. But she shows that she ain't gave up yet.
This is What It's Like, a production made possible by supporters of WJCT. This episode was based on a conversation recorded by StoryCorps in Jacksonville, Florida. It was produced by me, Lindsay Kilbride, with editing by Jessica Palumbo. Subscribe to hear more stories like this one.
I'm apparently a really naive and gullible person when it comes to males. They don't want to give you any real anything, and it sucks.
Coming in January.
I had no idea that pie would become so famous.
Was it really that bad?
It was that bad and worse.
What were the issues with it?
The cook.
Thank you. So that is the new podcast. That's episode 1. So as David was saying at the beginning of the program, if you have a smartphone on you, go ahead and subscribe if you like it. Give us 5 stars if you like it. And there'll be a whole ton of new episodes next month. So we'll have the actual release date is to be determined, but we will keep you in the loop. You can also just go to wjct.org/podcast to also listen there. And Jacqueline, yes. So I think we're going to do a group photo now.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody one more time for coming out tonight, for listening, for sharing, for recording with us. Thank you for honoring us by participating in this and sharing your stories. What we'd love to do, 2 quick things to shout it out, is I'd like to invite all the participants to come up to the front so that we can take a group StoryCorps Jacksonville Class of 2018 photo. And if you're inclined, there are surveys on your table. I know WJCT is always very interested to know feedback from the folks who come to the event. So want to encourage you all to express any ideas and thoughts that you have about your experience tonight in those surveys. And if you're feeling the StoryCorps love, we do have some 2018 mobile tour posters available for purchase on your way out. They're new, they're kind of cool, but in the meantime, thank you all again. It's been such a privilege. We really appreciate it. Please come on up if you participated, and y'all have a wonderful night.